Welcome to Rock Run House. This week we look at some fall color. We take a few field trips, including to the historic Granville Inn here in Ohio, and we feature our Songs and Stories events held in late October. So stick around for this week at Rock Run. When we're not distracted by the fall color, we were working this autumn on getting the barn ready for the Songs and Story event. This involved rebuilding the floor and doing other various things to get the barn ready for people to hang out. Here I am on the threshing floor story of the barn. This is the old threshing floor where the wheat would fall down to the floor below. More on the Songs and Stories event later, but in the meantime, here's a glimpse into the work we put in to get ready for the event. Part of that work included making bread, which is what I do every week. I wanted to show you a little bit about the process. Here I am, the first shaping. So I shape them, I do this sort of braided method, and then I shape them and let them rest for a half hour. This is actually called the pre-shaping if I want to be technical. And after a half hour, I shape some more. This is where I sort of massage it into shape. There are lots of schools of thought on bread making, and you could just make yourself crazy by watching videos that sometimes say contradictory things. But I do believe that the less you handle it in some stages of the game, the better. So that sort of massaging it into shape, creating tension across the surface without overdoing it, that's what I'm doing here at the end after what I call braiding the bread is probably not the right term, but you can see it kind of rolling into shape without a lot of effort on my part, just creating tension across the surface. Here I am in the next stage of the process after it has rested for a half hour or so. I am shaping again. This is the final shaping before I put it in the bannetons. I'm flouring them, getting them ready to take the bread, and the bread will stay in the bannetons for hours. I usually put it in the refrigerator unless my kitchen is extremely cold, because you want a cold ferment for this last stage before you bake it. It just makes a better end product all the way around, and as an added bonus, it is much easier to score the top when the dough is chilled. In this stage, I do a different fold than the braiding fold. I do an envelope fold where I maintain the tension and pull the dough gently and fold it over. Again, minimal handling is the ideal. And you will have to excuse my sleeves. They are dragged through flour and it is not an appealing sight, but I didn't really want to re-record, and you're just going to get the real show here, what it's really like to be making bread with me. And I usually do try to roll my sleeves up a little higher, just so you know. There is something strangely hypnotic about shaping bread, working with bread, handling the dough. I don't know if it's because it's like a primal need within us, but it's just really satisfying to handle dough. So I don't know if it's as satisfying to watch someone shape dough, but I'm just going to hope that it is, and hope you enjoy this glimpse into the process that I go through a couple times a week. And now for something completely different, a shot of our pizza every week that we cap our bread making off with. Back to songs and stories. Here we are getting ready for the event itself. My brother is setting up the sound equipment. He's a musician, a singer-songwriter, and he led the songs part of the evening, and we had various storytellers join us. And here's a quick view of this is the second story of the barn, the middle story, and you can still see we're kind of high up and you get to see out over the backyard and the creek. We were excited to uplight the stone walls. It's a combination of the cliff wall and then stone built on top of it. So this is the first event we've had at this level, and there's a lot more we could do with lighting, but we got a little start here for this event.
Worth anything, but it never worked for me. Oh dear
The next day, it is back to work at the bread stand, and then we move on to the next event, which is also a musical event at friends of ours. They live on an historic street here in Ohio, and we went trick-or-treating and then ended up in their backyard, where my brother and my nieces and nephews who play with him did a little event. The focus was sad songs, and there is something really amazing about listening to sad songs while watching children dressed as rockets and various other things in their costumes walking around. It makes the sad songs kind of easier to take.
the time has come, we've gotta go, run, run, run. The time has come, the time has come, the end is finally here. Take my hand, we'll do the best we can. Take my hand, show me that you're near.
As we say in the opener to each of our videos, here at Rock Run House we focus on food, books, and music. And I wanted to highlight this book as the books part of our video. It is Heirloom Gardener by John Forte, and he has worked for many decades at preservation properties or conservation properties, historic houses. He really knows his stuff, and it's a distillation of A through Z in the life of a gardener. One thing he really focuses on is seed saving. So I've been trying to get better at doing that. I'm showing here me finally digging out the dahlias before we have a super hard frost. And I am especially attached to these dahlias because I grew them from seed themselves. So they have a special place in my heart, and they are very interesting. Dahlias themselves have a interesting expression when you grow them from seeds. They're not as consistent as when you grow them from tubers. So it is kind of fun to see what emerges from a dahlia seed. I'm harvesting Tulsi basil here, holy basil. I've come to love this plant. the basil seeds themselves are really, really tiny. As you can see, I'm not fastidious about the actual collection process. Right now, I'm just anxious to get them in the bags. I didn't have that much time. Later on, I'll be more fastidious, I hope, about labeling them and making sure everything is sorted out. Here it is. Here's the tiny, tiny little seed that will turn into an amazing plant. The dahlias that I grew from seed were mostly yellow, except for this tuber produced a beautiful red flower with velvety petals. So I wanted to label that one, as I would love to grow it again next year with the same characteristics. If you grow from tubers, you can maintain the characteristics, as far as I understand it, versus seeds. So it's definitely a world worth delving into to figure out how to do it to get the results you'd like. Moving on to zinnia seeds, I grew by accident. I didn't intend to buy them. I grew these tiny little flowers. It's not the conventional sized zinnia you see in the background there, but a much smaller size one. And there it is. That's the size of the tiny little flower head. I can't wait to grow them again next year. And here is my fancy official way of labeling my flowers. I'm sure I could look up the name of the variety I bought, but in the meantime, it just says Lil Zinnia. What else do you need to know? Calendula self-seeds so prolifically that it might be a bit redundant to save the seeds, but I really love calendula. This is after a frost, and look at the color that is still in the garden. It's just a hardworking plant and has amazing medicinal properties. So I definitely want to hang on to some seed just in case something should grow awry next year or I want to give some away. So I collected quite a few calendula seed heads. Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds is where I got the seeds for Brad's Atomic Grape tomatoes, and they advertise them as their most popular tomato, and when you look at them, they don't look like that would be the case. But after growing them, I can see why. They taste amazing and the colors are fascinating. I really like them, and the only downside is that if you make a sauce, it's not necessarily the conventional color, and some people don't love that. But look how they hang. They hang like a bunch of grapes. So again, this was after a frost, so I thought my tomatoes would all be dead, but I'm not sure why. They're kind of in a sheltered spot, but I went to clean things up and found all these tomatoes. So that was a very pleasant surprise. And here is a quick shot of my daughter cleaning up the garlic, which is a task that has been on the to-do list since July. So she got it done for me. Last week I was in Kentucky with my son. We were doing some projects with our church, and we stopped in at the Pine Mountain Settlement School, a beautiful building that teaches traditional Appalachian craft. And this building made me want to make our barn look this amazing. Here's a woven chair done by hand, just one of the many things the school teaches. I was also able to take a quick overnight with my husband at the Granville Inn here in Ohio, a beautiful town, New England style, so of course I loved it as it reminded me of where we lived for many years. And here's just one of the houses that is in the town that just excels at decorating seasonally, so I found the town of Granville very inspiring. Part of that same trip away from Rock Run House was an all-day event I attended, sponsored by the Bread Bakers Guild of America, highlighting the local grain economy here in Ohio as more and more farms start to grow heritage grains, which is great as a baker, but also something I'm interested in for our family farm. I wanted to end this video with a shot of Ollie surveying the frosted landscape. He's one of the hardest working members of our family. He is probably contemplating the voles and the moles and the groundhogs that he needs to get before they burrow away for winter. So he's hard at work. He may not look like it, but he's thinking very busy thoughts right now. Thanks so much for watching. If you are in the area, please join us for our barn dance. It's coming up this weekend, and we look forward to having you visit Rock Run House, either online or in person.